You know, as you go through life, living this supposed American dream that we've all been told, many of us go through life asking ourselves, how do I contribute and how do I make a difference? These are not rhetorical questions, but the deeper you dive into the question of how do I contribute and how do I make a difference, the closer you'll be to living a life that's ideal and in your highest alignment. So if you're curious about understanding how do you contribute and how do you make a difference, stay tuned and I'll talk about how to figure that out. Hey, what's going on? It's Eric. They call me the Modern Mystic, and I'm like, just treat me like your big brother. And I'm here to help you find freedom and abundance. And I've been reading this book by Peter Drucker called Managing Oneself. And I'll put the link in the bio. I think it's truly a phenomenal book. Short read, 56 pages, under $10. And it really changed the methodology of how you live your life, because the reality is all of us want to live a life to our highest potential. Many of us don't want to be in this hamster wheel spinning around just doing what everybody else tells us to do and just live a life of disappointment, right? So with that said, one of the questions that many of us always ask ourselves is, how do I make a difference? How do I contribute? And this may not necessarily just be in philanthropy or doing good, but it might be in your life. It might be in your business or at your place of work. So before I get started, I wanted to ask you a question. How do you make a difference? How do you contribute? I would love to hear your feedback. Pop them in the comment section below. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that and smash that like button, because I love seeing your engagement. It really drives me to make more and more awesome videos just like this. So the question a lot of us always ask ourselves all the time is, how do I contribute? Because we all want to truly feel valued in life, right? We want to know that what we do is valuable to others. So as you've seen from previous videos on this concept of Peter Drucker's book, Managing Oneself, we talked about understanding and knowing what your strengths are so that we could focus on it and hire your weaknesses. We also figured out, okay, how do you determine what your values are, and seeing to make sure that what you're doing is in alignment with what your true values are. We also figured out, how do you perform? How do you learn? How do you execute? How do you work well in teams? And finally, we had the conversation of understanding, where do I belong? So now that we've got clear on that, it's really important and imperative to understand, how can we contribute? Now, how can we contribute is important, understanding all of the previous context. Once you know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how you work in teams, what your values are, you'll really know how you can contribute either in your workplace or how you can contribute in your nonprofit. Now, for years, for me, I had no idea how I could contribute. All I knew is I could contribute by working hard. And I did a lot of stuff for the nonprofits that I was part of just by doing like sweat and hard labor, which was valuable to a lot of folks, but it really didn't play into what my strengths were. Like, for example, I love doing house builds in Mexico. And we would go and I would sit there and shingle up the roofs and put up studs and sheetrock and stuff like that. And I was good at building homes, but that wasn't really the biggest skill set I had. My biggest skill set, what I started realizing in my strengths, was I love teaching and mentoring people. So instead of me hammering the nails, I taught the other folks how to hammer nails and how to cut sheetrock. And by doing so, I empowered others to be able to help build this home on a much quicker basis, but gave them the sense of courage and gave them the sense of accomplishment, which is important for a leader to be able to transpire for their followers. So I found that to be really interesting. So I always started asking myself, how can I contribute and how do I make a difference? How do you figure this out? So what I'd recommend doing is, after watching the previous couple of videos, understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, understand what your values are, understand like what's most in alignment with you, understand where you belong, and start writing down, what are you here for? And how can you contribute? Maybe at work, you might have this new project that's coming up, right? And you're part of this team. And the project is, let's say it's to code a new database for the computer system. Maybe you're working in retail and you're launching a new product line and they're looking to create new decorations for the store. Maybe you operate your own business as a plumber and you're bringing on new team members to help you in your business. Start figuring out what your strengths and weaknesses are and figure out how you could slot yourself in to maximize what your skills are and what's most in alignment with your values. Write that down, and that way you get a little bit more clear. So let's say, for example, the new project is to code this database for your startup that you're working in. So figure out what your values and your alignments are. If you're a leader, maybe you can ask to be like, hey, can I assist or be the project manager to lead over the project? Maybe your skill set is in programming. And maybe you could say, hey, I can help with this piece of the code and I can execute and deliver on it. How do you slot yourself in to make a difference? Because at the end of the day, I believe that many of us want to know that the work that we do is valuable, whether it's a professional life or in a nonprofit life. So I invite you to ask yourself this question, now knowing what your strengths are, what your values are, where do you belong, all of these things. Ask yourself at the end of the day, how can I make a difference? And I would love to hear your feedback. How would you make a difference in the world today? Maybe it's in a nonprofit. Maybe it's maximizing your business so you could give back as a for-purpose business. These are all beautiful things. But pop them in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you on how you can make a difference. How can you contribute? And it doesn't necessarily just have to be nonprofit or this big pie in the sky thing. It could be just be in your life. It could just be in your relationships. It could be in your job. So with that said, I'm again reading from this book called Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. I'll put a link of it in the bio section. I would love to have you order this book and read it along with me. I think it's really impactful. And if you haven't watched the other videos on managing oneself or how to grow as a person, check out all those other videos. I'm gonna build a playlist for you so you can check it out. And if you're new here, hit that like button, subscribe button. I'll see you again next week. Take care. Peace.